I'm joined now down at Portavoe Reservoir by Austen Lennon, who's a local councillor. Austen, you've watched what's been going on over the last number of weeks in relation to the wildlife down here, and what is your view on it now?
Well, I've been watching it, and there's been a very active group called the Friends of Portavoe group who have been monitoring this and giving me information back again. And I've written to the Minister and I've written to other departments, and to be quite frank, their answers are scandalous. They clearly have made a mistake in what they've done in this time of year and killing wildlife, birds, fish, and in the future of this place as well. The fact that they've drained the lake means that the mussels that are sitting on the edge of this lake will poison the lake for another year or two to come. One of the major aspects that I find too is that the north end of the lake is a wildlife sanctuary, a very shallow water wading birds. And once you destroy something like that, which is totally destroyed, they won't come back for 4 to 5 years, and it'll take years to come.
Have you found the answers from the different departments that seem to be involved with it? Do they vary in what they think, or is there off one song?
It's like a memograph. It's exactly the same expression every time that they did this and did that. But what they did is they did their investigations in November, and it was supposed to be drained in November. But the excuses they had is that there was too heavy a rainfall, and so they couldn't drain it properly until this time of year. But the permission they had was to drain this in November when there was no breeding season involved, there's no fish stock. But instead of that, they didn't bother to check with the Heritage Trust or the Northern Ireland Environment Agency, and they just drained it. So I think it's serious enough that the Friends of Portavoe group are actually considering a judicial review, and I would encourage them to do that as soon as possible, an urgent judicial review, to get something to happen to stop the death that's happening here today.
I can understand a judicial review can be got very quickly, and indeed could be done within a matter of days, because time's obviously marching on. With each passing day, the reservoir continues to drain. Yes,
and there's clear problems. It might even be involved with an injunction to stop what they're doing here. I don't blame the builders or the people, the contractors actually coming here. It's the people who gave them instructions. Someone needs to answer for this, because I think we've heard about 14 to 15 cormorant birds dying, but that's only the cormorants that are eating the poison fish and poison mussels here. There's hundreds of other species here that are suffering. There's a very strong bat population. Bats feed off the insects at the top of the reservoir. The insects are almost non-existent now because of the poisoning in the reservoir. So we're breaching so many European regulations here that it's scandalous. And that word is overused at times, but in this situation it's extremely scandalous.
And the dead birds that have been found, indeed, they're only the ones that people happen to have seen. I mean, obviously birds can move about and could have died elsewhere.
That's correct, yes. And what their bodies do in a shallow and a lake that's going down all the time is they poison the water even further. And they also, the Water Service mentioned that the fact that they couldn't just block off part of the lake to change the valves. But that is completely false. I would use the word lie, but I don't want to do that. But it's false, because they could easily have blocked off one small portion of this without damaging any of the wildlife and done the job within a month.
And realistically, any impact survey they did was at best limited, and when it was done for the wrong time of year as to when they started to take action and start the work.
Well, one of the things about the impact survey is that the Northern Ireland Environment Agency is the ones responsible, and they are hiding from this. They don't want to upset the Minister, they don't want to upset the Water Board. I don't actually think there was an impact survey done by the Northern Ireland Environment Agency. I spoke to the RSPB birds. They're shocked by this. The Wildlife and Wetlands Trust are horrified by this. And someone has to answer for this, because somebody has not done their job properly, and we're now faced with a cover-up. So I think the only way is for the Friends of the Portavoe group to start an injunction or judicial review. I think that's the only way to handle this.
Okay, thank you. John, you've been coming to Portavoe since the problems here started over the past weeks, and I know that many of the people who are concerned about what's happening here have been in contact with the different agencies and departments, and so far it's been a fairly fruitless process.
Yes.
And the Friends of Portavoe now feel that the only option they have left is to seek a judicial review into what's going on to try and get it stopped. How do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, it wouldn't. From the beginning, this started, we went down every single avenue we possibly could to contact them, to speak with them, emailing them, and we've been met with walls, total ignorance. It's as if really they really don't care. The judicial review is probably the only thing we can do to stop it. Mr. Kennedy hasn't been down here himself. I don't believe he's even thought about coming down near Portavoe to actually look. But even there are other departments within government who, working in conjunction with the water board, are just closing doors left, right, and centre. They don't care. Even we've taken photographs. The devastation basically and that's going on down here isn't.
Well, the evidence is there of what's happening to the wildlife. I mean, that is indisputable.
Sure.
But you feel that the Minister, Danny Kennedy, really, had he been interested, and once the protest started, instead of sending workmen down, could have made a visit himself just to see firsthand what's happening.
Absolutely. Oh, he could have, absolutely. I mean, instead of that, basically it's a case of just keep draining it. Don't respond. If we don't respond, nothing will happen. And we've had contractors down here draining it, and as it's draining away, the life's draining away out of the Portavoe. Mr. Kennedy is well aware of what's going on down here. He has his own people watching press reviews and different other means of social media, so he knows exactly what's going on down there. He's just choosing to ignore it and not respond. And
really, you feel there's a plan amongst the agencies that they would prefer, as time goes on, obviously the water goes down and time runs out, which leaves you powerless. So a judicial review, in fact, would be the only way, because that can be fairly instantaneous in terms of its answer to get the situation arrested.
It will stop them dead in their tracks for a year anyway. We're also under the understanding that there are possibly 15 plus other places earmarked for the same thing. If we don't know what they're going to do with them. With Portavoe, it's scar valve replacement or maintenance. There are other ways of sorting that valve out rather than draining this reservoir, and he knows that.
But really, this is the one that, if this one doesn't get stopped, the others are wide open, and a judicial review indeed then may be the way forward. They get this stopped, that would make them think twice about taking the same sort of action and not informing people.
That's right.
At the others.
That's right, yeah, sure. Whether he learns his lesson or not, I don't know. This isn't the first time that Mr. Kennedy's been on the wrong side of wildlife with regard just doing what he thought he could. A5 being one case, but sure, how he's going to deal with the other reservoirs. But a judicial review will certainly make him sit back and think that he just can't do what he wants when it comes to nature.
The latest news from the group that has been formed, Friends of Portavoe, is that they intend to seek a judicial review to try and get this work stopped, so that they can do something to help protect the wildlife before it really is too late. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think something has to be done. This is an absolute scandal, and I think the main problem we have is the fact that the habitat survey was not complete. It was done at the wrong time of year, and the drainage was done at the wrong time of year. The habitat survey focused a lot on what was coming out of Portavoe during drainage, not what was in it. We're seeing the dead seabirds, we're seeing the start of a decaying ecosystem. It'll go on and on. This will take years to fill. So I think this has to be stopped. They must not drain it. There's about another 2 metres of water in there. Once that goes, this place is ruined. Judicial review is needed right now.
You would be a regular coming down here.
Absolutely.
And you must have seen over the past weeks
it's incredible.
The horror of what's actually going on.
Absolutely. And also there are things like there were 15 cormorants killed here last week. Those birds have been lifted and taken away. That's very suspicious. The dead mussels were lifted and taken away. We know that the mussels are killing the cormorants for sure. So who's lifting all these things? Northern Ireland Water? I don't know what they're up to. But their statement that came out recently says they're doing nothing wrong. They are doing something wrong. We need a judicial review to stop them.
Thank you.